How are we doing in town hall?
Well, I'm not in town hall, but I'm doing okay.
Nice. Hi, Sheila.
Hi, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Okay, can you hear us now, Shane?
I can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
And now I can see you too. All right, before we start the meeting, if you haven't already, for those that would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please do that now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible, with
with liberty and justice
for all.
Great, thank you. And is everyone in town hall ready to begin the meeting?
We are now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Silverton Board of Trustees. Today's February 12th, and the time is 7:03 p.m., and I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Here.
Trustee Crinker?
Here.
Trustee Harper?
Here.
Trustee Bierma?
Here.
Trustee George?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Here.
Mayor Furman?
Here. Wonderful, thank you. I did see that we received an email a few minutes ago from Nathan with a revised agenda, but for the public's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, that was meant to go out on Friday morning at 9 o'clock, and for some reason, it just went out right now. It's been stuck in his outbox.
All good. I was going to say for the public, and for any trustees who haven't seen that yet, can we go over what those revisions to the agenda include?
The revisions to the agenda were the scheduling special event notice, informational only packet, as well as my staff report, for this current, meeting. And it was the same email that Gloria had sent out previously as well. No changes, just, the addition of those two items.
Okay, great. And then Gloria or any other staff or board members, do we have any other revisions to this evening's agenda?
Staff does not.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So now we will move to our public comment period. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Please introduce yourself first, and then the timer will begin. We'll start with in-person comments and then move to Zoom comments. If you're on Zoom and would like to make a public comment, please click the raise hand button now so we can get you in the queue. Do we have anyone in town hall? I'm sorry?
We have 3 people, but no comments? No comment.
Okay. And I don't see any raised hands on Zoom. So we'll go ahead and close this public comment period. We will have another public comment period at the end of the meeting. And we'll move on to our first substantive agenda item, which is new business item 4A, public hearing, 1129 Green Street exterior renovations within the Architectural Review Overlay District and Historic Overlay District.
And we have Chris and Sheila on to introduce this application.
Okay, perfect. And then just as a reminder for everyone, since this is a public hearing, we will hear from Chris and Sheila. Then we will give the applicant an opportunity to present anything they would like to present. We will then have a public comment period, and then we'll have trustee discussion and deliberation. And so I will kick it off to you guys, Chris and Sheila.
Yes.
Can you hear Chris? I can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
No.
We can hear you, but it's a little muffled.
Is it better now or no?
It is.
Okay.
It is for me. Is it good in town hall?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, so before you all today is an application for exterior renovations within the A-Rod. and-
Chris, sorry, it's muffled again. It's like breaking up when you're talking.
Can you hear me now?
We'll see.
Before you all tonight is an application for exterior renovations within the A-Rod and Historic Overlay Districts located at 1129 Green Street.
Good.
As mentioned before, the project is located at 1129 Green Street. The owners are Citizen State Bank. The applicant is the project architect, Tim Stroh, and it's located within the BP Zone District. And as mentioned before, within the A-Rod and Historic Overlay District. I'd also like to mention that these applicants have submitted application before the state and federal tax programs, before the National Park Service, for historic rehabilitation work proposed on the property to receive some tax credits. This application was included in tonight's packet. All required submittal requirements and public notices were submitted on December 1st and January 11th before the Historic Review Committee meeting. Since the Historic Review Committee meeting, the applicants have updated their proposal to include some new elevations and reduce the overall height of the building. So the proposed improvements for you all tonight is to replace the windows, converting the ground level door into an ATM, adding a stair enclosure to the rooftop, and fixing damaged facades. The previous application would require a variance for the height, but they reduced the height to less than the 40-foot height restriction. So that's no longer required. They have also submitted some application materials to include the screening materials, which have been considered acceptable by the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service. And they noted that it provides a visual difference between the historic and new part of the structure. Additionally, the setback of the additions on the roof for the rooftop stair access is set back from the front of the building, so it has the least impact from public sight. The NPS and SHPO have also reviewed the ATM enclosure materials, and they felt that the use of stucco would be a more acceptable finish around the ATM versus the originally proposed corrugated metal. Finally, overall, the NPS and SHPO provided conditional approval of the proposed materials. As mentioned before, they adjusted the height of the proposed structure, so it's 39 foot 8 inches, which falls below the 40-foot height restriction within the BP and Historic Overlay District. So a variance is no longer required, and all other dimensional standards are met with this application. We have not received any public comments at the time this presentation was created. Finally, kind of a recap of the HRC recommendations. They recommended approval of the application for exterior work located within the A-Rod and Historic Overlay District with the following conditions. They requested the Board of Trustees review the application and determine if the materials approved by the National Park Service for the rooftop stair enclosure and second floor balcony is appropriate as viewed from the public street, so it does not detract from the historic appearance of the building. And finally, they recommended they wanted to support the approval of the ATM. However, they felt they did not have the power to approve the application since the builder's handbook states that original entryways, especially inverted entryways, should be preserved. Finally, staff recommendation for the board. We recommend the Board of Trustees approve the application for exterior renovations within the Historic Overlay District and A-Rod located at Lot 17 and 18, Block 28, as presented with the following conditions. Staff recommends the board review the application and determine if sufficient screening is provided for rooftop stair enclosure as viewed from the public street, so it does not detract from the historic appearance of the building. And if the proposed material used on the stair enclosure and second floor screening, which was approved by the National Park Service, is appropriate. And finally, we recommend the Board of Trustees review the application to determine if the original door to the north of the main storefront entrance, which is proposed to be converted into an ATM, should be preserved as required by the builder's handbook, or if an ATM should be allowed as recommended by the Historic Committee. The floor is now open for any discussion or questions.
Would it be possible to put the presentation down so that we could see everyone on the screen? Thank you. I had a quick just process question. It seems like this maybe didn't go in front of the Planning Commission, and I was curious to understand what our normal process is and why or why not this wouldn't go in front of the Planning Commission. Because normally when we see something like this, we'll get a recommendation from the Planning Commission as well.
So the uses are permitted within the zone district, so they didn't have to have any type of Planning Commission review. It was just for the exterior renovations.
Got it. Thank you. And then I had one point of clarification. I don't believe that the HRC committee asked the board to review and make sure that the materials were appropriate. I think the HRC committee asked the applicant to find out from the National Park Service what materials were deemed appropriate and present those to the board. And I just realized that I've jumped in prematurely because I think at this point, since the public hearing, we would now hear from the applicant. So apologies for going out of order. Do we have a representative of the applicant with us?
We do.
Okay, wonderful. So apologies for jumping in, and maybe now you can clarify the question.
That'll help me actually to jump in and clarify. So hello, everybody, trustees and staff, those of you online. Thank you again, Chris. Always a great summary, so save me some time. So Tim Stroh, I'm the architect and also the applicant for the Citizen State Bank project. I think what I'll do is, instead of trying to kind of rehash this whole thing, just go right to the staff recommendations and just kind of make my comments. But to your comments, Mr. Mayor, from what we were told, to kind of recap the last board meeting, we'd actually left some of the materials vague with the understanding that there might be some ability for the Architectural Review Committee to provide some suggestive type materials for these areas that we left kind of open, that being the stair enclosure that was on the roof, in the area around the ATM that's on the front in the door opening. And kind of during that meeting, they said, well, since we've already done so much amount of work with the tax credits, both at the state and the federal level, you tell us what you would like to get approved. So that's what we did. We went back and we did get back some information today. We recommended, I know it was a short turnaround, so that was pretty good for state and federal. We did get approval to use a corrugated metal on the stair enclosure and screening areas around the roof. We had suggested a flat metal panel around the ATM that would be painted out to look in similar color to the other facade materials, but they recommended kind of a flat stucco around the ATM area, which, as far as we're concerned, that's fine because that area around the ATM is really almost like a panel insert anyways in the door opening. So really that was fine. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Mayor, but we did get approval from those, and then we did send those to staff as well. And that was today. So I really don't know if anybody had a chance to get that information or not. As far as the staff recommendations, we don't have really any issues with what's there. I do want to take a couple comments about, sorry, let me find those pieces of paper. The original door where the ATM is, this was actually something I didn't think would be an issue. We got it approved, and one of the reasons why the Park Service and through the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and also the State Historic Preservation Office allowed us to show an ATM in that place where there was a door is because everybody agreed with the documentation that we had, that the door that was there, and it's actually might be the door that's there today, I don't know, was not original. It's an existing door, but it's not an original door. It's also not a historic door as following those standards. So there was a fire in that area of the building. The stairs in that door had all been modified previously. So following the standards, that actually allows us a little flexibility to do things like this. And we did exhaust quite a few different opportunities to look at other configurations of the ATM, but this was actually the best one. And it allows us to basically put the ATM in a panel where a door leaf normally would be. And in the future, if that ever wants to be returned to a door, you can do that. It just pops right out. The other good thing that we're doing is as we rebuild and reconstruct the facade of the building, we're putting a transom back over where that door would have been. Or there's there's actually two transoms. One's there now if you drive by, but there is one that's missing. So we're actually kind of going a couple steps further on in that. So otherwise, I think, we're feeling pretty good about this. Really excited about the project. We've had a lot of buy-in. We've been working on this for about a year and a half now, and so happy to be here. So I'll just I think I'll save any more comments unless there's questions that I can clarify. So I appreciate all your time and thanks to staff for their time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So now we'll open for public comment. Do we have any, same process and procedure as the regular public comment? Do we have anyone in person that would like to make a public comment?
No, we do not.
And do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to raise their hand to make a public comment? I don't see anyone raising their hands, so we'll close the public comment period and move to trustee discussion deliberation. Since I prematurely kicked it off, I will go ahead and just say my piece real quick and say, I think this is great. It looks like they addressed the few things that were still questions at the HRC meeting. And even though the ATM does add some modernness to the facade, I think that the proposed finishes around it are an improvement to what it currently is. And I think they're doing a good job to make the building overall look appropriate for Green Street. So I'm in support of approving this.
I just had a quick question in terms of what we're looking at approving apologies if I missed this somehow. Are we including the residents on the first level in this topic, or is that another topic?
No, we're only talking about the design standards right now.
Okay.
I think that, yeah, the only thing that the ATM was,
Or that doorway is, it's okay to go away based on what the State Historical Society said and the park said. I mean, I don't.
that was the only thing.
My only question about the ATM really has nothing to do with its like juxtaposition of modern with old, but more along the lines of, I mean, I know nothing about this, so scratch it from the minutes if it's totally dumb, but just thinking about the material surrounding machine, like computer systems and wiring and magnets and whatever ATMs are made of with metal, or like just considering, it sounds like the stucco is the recommended material, but I was curious about what material, just because it does get direct sun and damage in that way. I'm sure you guys have thought of that, but metal seemed strange to me as a choice, but it sounds like it's not on the table.
I agree with Shane and Tyler and Sally about the look feel of this. I think adding that transom above is actually going to just kind of improve the look too, because you have that same level of windows So I think from a viewpoint standard, it'll be an improvement. So I'm fine with this. And like Tyler said, like if it's been approved by the National Park Service, the materials recommended, that feels like a great standard to work with. And seems in line with the Historic Review Committee as well.
I completely agree with what you and Tyler have said.
But I echo Sally, just keeping in mind that that direct sunlight is brutal. I have had a exterior door melt in the sun, so just,
That's what made me think about.
yes, just put that, try not to use black
Melting
material.
blinds.
Yes, exactly. The sun is brutal, so keep
Plants.
in mind.
Jordan, any feedback?
The metal staircase, that all seemed fine, right? On the top, or the staircase enclosure. National Park Service approved that, so. Seems fine too.
Yeah, I would say I'm good with the plan as it was presented.
I like it. I think this is so awesome to breathe a little life into that block of Main Street and yeah, bring traffic down there, and it's a beautiful building. So it's exciting to see it getting some love.
So do we need a motion?
We do.
Looking for
I
it.
know, me too.
I don't believe that we have a prepackaged motion in the memo. But we would be looking for
Yeah, go ahead.
a motion to approve the application for exterior renovations within the Historic Overlay District and Architectural Review Overlay District located on lot 17 and 18, block 28, as presented with the conditions included in the packet.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Kränker?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Bierma?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. Well, thank you all very much. And thank you, CPS, and Lucy for navigating through this for us. And thank you to the applicant as well as Doug and Alexander Price.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay, great. The next item on our agenda is item 4B, which is another public hearing relating to ordinance 2024-01 and ordinance amending chapter 16, article 4, division 6 of the Silverton Municipal Code by amending the requirements of the Architectural Review Overlay District.
Okay, before you is ordinance 2024-01, which amends the code to omit any mention of the builder's handbook within the Architectural Review Overlay District code. This was recommended by the Historic Review Committee at their meeting on December 20th, 2023, and presented to the Board of Trustees on January 8th, 2024, where the trustees directed staff to draft the requested ordinance, which is in front of you. This is the first reading of ordinance 2024-01. If trustees vote to approve the first reading, the second reading will be scheduled for February 26th. And if the first and second reading is approved, the ordinance will be enacted on March 27th, 2024. If there's any questions, I'll take them, but a pretty straightforward ordinance in front of you.
Wonderful, thank you. And since this is listed as a public hearing, we'll open public comment quickly to see if anyone in person has a public comment.
No?
No.
And if you're on Zoom, please click raise hand if you have a public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. And now we'll go to trustee discussion deliberation. Do we have any comments or questions for Lucy? Or would someone care to make a motion?
This made sense when we talked about it. I'll make the motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-01, amending Silverton Municipal Code Section 16-4-800 to omit any mention of the builder handbook from the Architectural Review Overlay District Code.
Second. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Cranker?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Grandma?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. Wonderful work, Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is very exciting. This is new business item 4C, notice of petition to annex and resolution 2024-03, substantial compliance resolution for the annexation of Anvil Mountain subdivision.
I feel like we need a bottle of champagne or we need Ernie Coleman at this meeting or something. This is so exciting.
So the town received an annexation petition on January the 29th for the annexation of the Anvil Mountain subdivision as described in the legal description and annexation map. The petitioning party is in San Juan County, Colorado, and the petition was signed by 86% of landowners.
All right.
This was filed with the clerk's office before I referred it to the planning department for a completeness review. Per state and local codes, I am now referring the petition to all of you as an informational item before Lucy and Clayton discuss the substantial completeness resolution. Awesome. Thanks, Melina. And can you promote Anthony as a?
Oh, he rejected it.
Oh, well, you can try again. Okay, so the next step now that we have had this petition filed with us is to review for substantial completeness. If the board finds the petition complete, they may approve a resolution of substantial completeness and schedule the annexation hearing, which is a formal public hearing to discuss the annexation. The town attorney and the planning department has reviewed the petition and find that it complies with CRS 31-12-107, and we are recommending to the Board of Trustees to approve resolution 2024-03, a resolution finding substantial compliance and declaring intent to annex Anvil Mountain Subdivision 1. The requirements of the petition are outlined in the resolution and in the staff report, and I'm happy to elaborate on any requirements or aspects of the petition and the annexation map. According to the county, this is going to be the first of 2 back-to-back annexations that will result in the annexation of the entirety of the Anvil Mountain subdivision and the portion of the Zanoni property that's located in the county. The annexation petition in front of you, we can refer to it as Anvil Mountain Subdivision 1 annexation petition. And the reason why this is being done in 2 separate annexations is to comply with CRS 31-12-104, which states that not less than 1/6 of the perimeter of the area proposed to be annexed is contiguous with the annexing municipality. And the perimeter of the entirety of the Anvil Mountain subdivision is more than 1/6, what touches town. So what the county did is they had a survey done to basically draw a line and cut it into 2 annexation plots so that they both comply. This is a really common issue that municipalities face. And typically what you would do is a series annexation, but we are just going to do a back-to-back one, which is just as legal. And the second petition has already been filed with the clerk and will be officially presented to the Board of Trustees at the next regular meeting. So what you have before you is the Anvil Mountain Subdivision 1 petition, the annexation map, the legal description, the substantial completeness resolution, and the legal notice for the annexation hearing. Again, staff is recommending to the board to move to approve the resolution and schedule the annexation hearing based on the petition's compliance with CRS 31-12-107. And we have Clayton online to answer any legal questions. And then Anthony online as well, who's been a huge part of this process on the town side and the county side.
So just to clarify for the public and for the board, basically we annex a portion, which is the Anvil Mountain Subdivision 1, and then that is part of the town, and then now we have the contiguous boundary to annex the second portion. Yeah, genius.
Gets us more
Boundary,
line.
yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
And Gloria addressed this for me earlier, I think, but just to be crystal clear that both annexations will be finished before, hopefully before the election. That way it's not only half of them.
Yeah, that's my question.
If
Yeah.
all of our scheduling goes
Right.
well, and we will be asking you guys for one special meeting, hopefully just one, in March. And, we really are crossing our fingers that everything's going. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a really specific schedule outlined, and as long as we could make all those deadlines, it will work. What will happen is, so during this meeting, we'll discuss scheduling the annexation hearing. And we have to wait 4 weeks or 30 days, at least, whichever one is longer, before we can hold the annexation hearing after this resolution's passed. And we had to wait 15 days from when we got the petition to bring it to you all. So where that puts us at is with the schedule is we would potentially hold the annexation hearing for petition 1 on March 25th, a regular Board of Trustees meeting. And then the next day, if it's approved, it's filed with the county. And once it's filed with the county and stamped as recorded, it's officially a part of town. And then our plan would be to hold, if we move forward with all of this, we would hold the next annexation hearing potentially the next day. So that would put us at the end of March before April 2nd.
And they would be eligible to vote at that point.
I just have to say that when we were elected, the only thing we were told was more ridiculously ambitious than trying to complete the master plan during these 4 years was trying to complete this annexation during these 4 years. So it's really impressive that you have been able to knock out both of them in a very, very short time frame.
Well, and I think the important thing to highlight for the public, for anybody listening, is absolutely it's important to have this done. So the year-round residents that live in Anvil are represented in town matters. But even beyond that, that's kind of like the short-term goal. But really beyond that, the annexation of this area allows so much more opportunity for some of our affordable housing initiatives and just for kind of the development and expansion of the community. And so I think that's just, both of those things are really important, but keeping both those goals in mind it's super impressive that staff has chipped away at this. And I know people get impatient about how slow government moves, but there's so many parts to this process. I know, Anthony, you can attest to that, Clayton, Lucy, Gloria. So it's really, really exciting. You've persevered.
Oh, yeah.
So do we have any other questions relating to this, or do we want to solidify this proposal with a motion?
Nothing else needs to be said?
Little typo in your.
Yeah, there is one thing.
Okay.
There's a typo in the memo. So if someone is going to move forward and make a motion, just make sure you refer to the resolution as resolution 2024-03. It is wrong in the
But it's right in the agenda, it looks like.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-03. A resolution of the town of Silverton finding substantial compliance and declaring intent to annex Anvil Mountain Subdivision 1.
Second. Job. Good job.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Cranker?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Birma?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Tim Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes.
Woohoo!
Nice work, team.
I just thought of another.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, it doesn't change my motion or voting. I really just wanted to get that solidified as quickly as possible. But in the event that subdivision number 2 meets with some glitches or this one is still gone through, right? So anyone in the map area of subdivision 1 potentially has, in terms of voting in the April election, I hear Dana's point of the longer term benefits, but like, does this subdivision 1 have the same potential like scheduling hurdles that subdivision 2 has at this point? Or are they on equal footing?
If I'm understanding your question right, we still have to go through a few processes for 1. We have to go through the noticing requirement
Yeah.
and the annexation hearing. And then the petition for Anvil Mountain Subdivision 2 has to go through all of that as well as this resolution
This one.
process.
Okay, so yeah. It's
But you
just-
said Anvil 2 is already, the petition is already on file with the clerk.
The petition has been filed with the clerk. We have to wait 15 days before I can bring it to you all, so we'll have to wait until the next meeting. But then we'll just be basically a week behind. But we're doing this one early so that they can kind of be back to back in March.
Okay.
We can include the timeline in the next packet.
That was, yeah, I was just
confusing.
wondering if even just, I think it would be helpful for the public to get a sense of what is
Yeah.
going into this.
Okay, that's good. to
Thank
know.
you. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up.
Sally, just let me say, I just want to follow up. I think a timeline is very important, and there is a proposed timeline, but that timeline's not, we're not able to give that to you with certainty until you passed and we're okay with this, because there's.
Right. This
so-
kickstarted that process. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I understand.
So it's just pretty rigid. When you see the timeline, the different things, I think it'll become more apparent why this has taken so long.
Okay, are we good to move on to the next agenda item?
Yeah, check that off the list, man. Let's go.
Awesome. Rock on. The next agenda item is new business item 4D, Alternative Silverton Liquor Authority Hearing Officer RFQ release.
All right, so at the November 13th work session, the board heard the sheriff's request for an alternative hearing officer for the Silverton Liquor Authority, directed staff to prioritize when they had capacity, basically after the budget. So Silverton Municipal Code, Chapter 6, Article 2, Section 6B states that the Board of Trustees shall appoint a second hearing officer who shall serve only when the hearing officer recuses themselves or has a conflict of interest. The RFQ, upon approval, will be released and distributed to secure an alternative hearing officer in line with our code. This is also a new format that will be used for RFPs and RFQs moving forward. Instead, you'll notice there's like not a score sheet this time. It gives us the discretion to, it has a lot more language in there that kind of protects us. One of our goals.
And are you seeking a motion for approval or direction to release?
Motion for approval on this one.
Okay, great. And trustees, are there any comments or questions?
This seems very procedural.
Yes.
So no. I'll make a motion to approve the release.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
I just had a question. In the past, when we've had RFQs for positions, we've included 2 notice recipients because early on when we were taking applications, I believe for the administrator role,
Got crossed.
we received a couple of applicants ended up in a spam box, and by having 2 since then, we haven't had similar issues. And I was wondering if we wanted to
Good point.
still have 2 email recipients for applicants.
Yes, we can do that. I've found that it causes a little bit of confusion sometimes, but especially with difficult last names to spell. But I'm happy to do
How do
that.
you mean?
We are moving towards new email addresses as well that will say administrator and deputy clerk and clerk. So we could add that as well to this so that there's a last name as well as a designated position. If
And I defer to you if you're happy with the single address at this point and we feel like we have sufficient processes in place to avoid technical issues, then I'm good to go. I just wanted to raise that since it was something we ran into a while ago.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
Anything
Sally,
else?
to cut you off. All good for you.
Yeah,
to go
I'm
now?
glad you brought that up. I recall that. I'll make a motion to approve the release of the RFQ for an alternative Silverton Liquor Authority hearing officer.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Kränker?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Birma?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you all very much. The next item on our agenda is consideration to approve the consent agenda items.
And
And
so
I
I
believe
just
there's a
want
couple that, you wanted to call
to
out.
point out a couple of these consent agenda items. First one is the sheriff's contract for 2024. I was directed to fund half of the new position. This is reflected in number 2 in the contract. And then work with the sheriff on his other concerns, including providing and taking out the provision that requires him to provide a facility for stray dogs. And the language that the sheriff has sole jurisdiction, since technically it is shared with the building and code enforcement officer in town. And then you'll also find a letter of support for DOLA local planning capacity grant that was approved in the board's role as the housing authority. And now we are needing approval in the board's role as the town board. And then for ski joring,
I'll take over that. Thank you, Gloria. For ski joring this year, I did include a special event application just so you can see what will be happening this coming weekend within town. It is informational only due to the contract that was agreed upon back in December of 2023. Ski joring is set for President's Day weekend again, February 17th through 18th. And this year we are updating our road closures. We are going to close off Blair Street from 9th through 14th, as well as 12th Street between Green and Blair Streets for Vendor Row and our alcohol party zone. We are also closing off some alleyways between Blair Street and Mineral Street, just for horse and skier returns. But the change this year is Green Street, 14th Street, which is from Green Street to the bridge on Mineral, right before Mineral Street. We're closing that off to allow horses and skiers to have that extra runoff. And that was a request that was made by a local citizen. And this year, we are set to also include the alcohol zone, which I do apologize is not in the memo. The alcohol zone is on half of Blair Street on, 12th Street between Green and Blair. Say all this 10 times fast. It will be from the alleyway in front of High Noon over to Blair Street. And the road closure notices, if you look at our map, which we did include, everything in red is going to be blocked off. So there will be no through traffic from 9th Street through 14th Street on Blair. We will have detour signage on Green Street, which can take you all the way up to 16th Street. Head over to Mineral, go down Mineral, and you can get to Kindle Mountain from that area. And are there any questions or concerns about the current map and road closures?
A new agenda has the map. Yep.
Okay, with no questions about that, I do want to go ahead and thank Silverton Skijoring for continuing their good work. We will have volunteer meetings this week. So if you do want to volunteer for Silverton Skijoring, please reach out to myself or anyone on the board, and we will be more than happy to take your time and give you a awesome hoodie that Creative Cracker Jack has come up with. And it is very awesome. Check it out on Facebook.
Thank you very much. Trustees, any comments or questions relating to anything in the consent agenda?
Yeah, I had one question about the ski drawing. And maybe I just missed it, so please correct me. Are there going to be some sort of detour signs for people to get to Kendall?
Yes,
Yeah.
there are. Okay. We will include the detour signs on Green Street as well as Blair Street and Mineral Street.
Okay.
And Nathan, just a quick question as I'm looking at the map. So the yellow on the marker, if you have that, what does the yellow indicate?
So the green with the stripes is the actual race course.
Yep.
Once you hit 12th Street, that's the finish line.
Yep.
And the rest from 12th to 14th Street is going to be the horse and racer runoff.
Yeah.
Sometimes they stop by 13th Street and they're able to follow that yellow line all the way through the alley, back down to the start line. Sometimes they need to go all the way to 14th.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what was happening, but it just hadn't been noted necessarily
Yeah.
in the application.
Yeah, I know we've had visitors before, so this is helpful to know where they can go and.
And what day will the street closures start?
The street closures, I printed out the signage, which we are going to post within every single intersection multiple times. There's no parking in certain sections, February 15th through the 18th, and then 17th and the 18th are the actual event dates. But the no parking 15th through the 18th is for us to set up the course as well as block off the alleyways.
Thank you.
And for the blue on the map, that is also going to be residential only parking. We will be putting up signs for our residents instead of issuing out passes for everyone to let visitors know that residents do need to get to their homes. So we're designating parking for them.
Gotcha, so that's the blue line.
Right.
Gotcha.
And one more piece of information. I have spoken with the EMS director and we do have an agreement with them, and my emails, as you all noticed, have been a little delayed. They've been stuck in my outbox. So apologies to EMS, OEM, and Sheriff's Department if you did not get this as quickly as stated in the actual application, but everyone is fully aware of the information now. And I was asked by the sheriff to make a few changes and updates, which I will get with the Skijoring board, and we will implement those for him.
Wonderful. Any other comments or questions related to the consent agenda, or would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Oh,
Go for it.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Cranker?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Bearma?
Yes.
Trustee George?
yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you all very much. The next item on our agenda is staff reports.
Okay. So first, I'm requesting to schedule a housing authority meeting at 6 p.m. before our regular meeting on the February 26th. We have some updates and action items for the authority to approve. Are you all okay with that? Okay, great. I did send you a calendar invite prior to warn you. Let me just get that out there. And then we did schedule a Personnel and Ordinance Committee meeting for the 26th at 5 p.m. This is not reflected at the end of the agenda in the packet, but it was scheduled after the packet went out. And then the code rewrite learning sessions. We did 2 in January. They are posted on our YouTube. I encourage you all to go and watch them. But we are postponing the remainder of those sessions. We had 4 more sessions. Yeah, 4 more sessions to go. And because we are doubling down on annexation right now. And I've kind of reprioritized so that we can do that as well as our other duties and getting our historic review committee together and brownfields. We've got a lot on our plate right now. So it shouldn't interrupt our time frame as far as our citizen engagement that we're planning for this summer regarding the land use and development code, and it'll give people a chance to catch up. So in April and in May, we'll have those learning sessions resume, and we'll be putting out language around that in the standard. And then lift is currently down with the electrical error, but check the website or Kendall Mountain social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, for an update there. Should be a simple fix. We just need to figure out how to fix it. And Melina, did you want to give an election update?
Yeah. All of you know that we drew names for the ballot order. We have ordered ballots. They should be ready on Wednesday for pickup in Montrose.
Correct.
Okay, great. So we'll have them on Wednesday. What else? Tackling the Tabor ballot question this week. Anybody would like to come give me feedback or ask questions, please come see me. There will be something in the paper this week requesting feedback if anybody has any, which then I'll send out to everybody so that they know what's going on. Unless nobody is interested, and then I'll just keep moving. Yeah, the next big thing on the list are overseas ballots. Those will go out on February the 16th.
Great. And then we have scheduled candidates night will be held on Monday, March 4th at 6 p.m. And then Nathan.
As most of you know, this past weekend was Silverton Snowscapes, and the highlights of my winter were the children's cardboard box derby sled race, which we had some pretty epic builds this year. One sled actually took 4 adults to finally destroy. And this year we did reintroduce safely the adult cardboard box derby sled workshop and race. We had, I believe, 6 participants and a huge crowd. So it was very well received and cheered on. If you would like to see some of those recaps, go to visit Silverton Instagram page through the Chamber of Commerce. Those are fun videos to watch. Unfortunately, the lift did go down on Saturday right before our night ski event, so we did have to cancel. And we did have a few backups that unfortunately did not seem to follow through. So what we are going to do is on March 2nd, which is the first Saturday of the month, we do have a scheduled night ski. And I am going to let the cat out of the bag. We are also going to have a night ski on March 30th. So a bonus night ski to help cover the ones that we did not get, snow dependent and lift dependent. I do want to thank the Facility Parks and Recs Department. They were amazing in trying to get everything set up and troubleshot so we could be up and running. Unfortunately, we weren't able to, but they did everything they could. For any lift updates, as Gloria mentioned, please visit Kendall Mountain on Instagram or Kendall Mountain on Facebook, and they will be posted there. And the upcoming events that we do have are Silverton Skijoring this weekend. The following weekend, we have the Silverton Bank Slalom at Kendall. The weekend after that, we have the Flying Sled Dog Race, which was rescheduled at the train depot. And then again, Candidates Night, which will be posted and live streamed. And if y'all have any questions about events, please reach out to events@silverton.co.us, and I'll be more than happy to assist further.
Thank you.
I just want to give a shout out before Nathan leaves. I could put it in trustee reports, but I know how much work goes into organizing the events, and when they don't go off the way you hoped, it's so disappointing. So just wanted to shout out to you, to Facilities and Parks Department for trying to make something really special for locals. A lot of it was a huge success, so celebrate that. All the kids had so much fun. Carper Derby is an event that just brings a whole variety of people out. You see people standing there that wouldn't always be in the same place together. So really fun. Thanks to the town. Gloria was a great impartial judge.
Word on the
Really
street.
happy. And thanks for the effort, even though it wasn't quite everything you dreamed it would be.
It was actually much to the delight of all the ski racers who were gonna have to miss it. They were totally fine.
If you exit the building tonight and you see a giant ball, imagine those lighting up Kindle at night, multicolored. So
Great,
we are going to have quite the experience on March 2nd.
great fun.
Nice, well, I'll be here.
Thanks.
Okay, great. So next item on our agenda is that everything for staff reports? All good?
We could keep going, but we're good.
I mean, check page 102.
All right. So the next thing on our agenda is committee reports. And the first one is the Historic Review Committee, which can be very succinct this evening because the substance of that meeting was going over the application that we had our public hearing for this evening. We also went over Bob's rules and made some updates to our bylaws. And anything else to add, Lucy?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. And then we had a Silverton Chamber of Commerce meeting. Would someone like to provide that overview?
It was it was a good meeting. I don't have my notes in front of me. But I will say that the biggest part of the meeting was we're changing our schedule. We're going to be meeting bi-monthly instead of every other month. Instead of every month, we're going to meet every other month.
Wait,
Instead of meeting
you're
every
going
month.
from monthly to every other month.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yep. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah.
Just clarifying.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was, we had a small group because a lot of folks were traveling and, didn't talk about much. We talked about, all the special events coming up. So, thanks.
Great, thank you very much. And we also had a Region 9 Economic Development Board meeting.
Yeah, I attended that. Those meetings are always really helpful for kind of getting a lens on what's happening at the regional level. And I think just really great for San Juan County to be so represented in Silverton. We have Alex Lannis as a member at large. We have Willie Tukey representing San Juan County, and then Gloria or myself representing Silverton. A couple highlights for the board and the community. Region 9 continues to work on some particular projects that are relevant to us, particularly broadband. So trying to continue to work on redundancy, and they're working on kind of putting together regional approaches to broadband. And I know this board has heard some of that, but just being reminded that that's kind of on the table as there's federal infrastructure money. And so they're continuing to work on broadband and redundancy for the whole region. They're working on some housing projects in different areas. And there's actually the first home manufacturer breaking ground to build manufactured homes in the region. So that was kind of interesting regionally to think about. They also are working on transportation. Not that many transportation providers come up to Silverton, but it benefits those who are down the valley. And then There's a variety of things for small businesses, so I just think putting a plug, and I know San Juan Development certainly advertises this, but just there's trainings, there's legal support, there's a whole variety of things for any of our small businesses here to access through Region 9. So if anybody wants more information on that, I would say get in touch with San Juan Development Association because they would be most directly tied into that. And another thing I just wanted to highlight is Region 9 has worked on a variety of grants for the whole region and brought in over $3.8 million to the region, just that entity alone. So really great thing for us to be a part of. I know we put a small amount in our budget for them to be a member, and it's money well spent. Any questions on Region 9? Of course. I love it. It's fun.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. The next thing on our agenda is trustee reports.
I would like to say something. So upon reflection of our last meeting, I wanted to clarify some points to the public and to the board. I was really under the weather to the extent that I had taken a day off from work. And in my haste to conclude the meeting, I think I prematurely stifled and redirected a valuable conversation that we've all been working on for quite some time. And for that, I want to apologize to each of you and to our community members who expect and deserve our full engagement and consideration. In light of this, I'd like to suggest we revisit the topic from our last session. I think it holds considerable importance, and I believe we owe it our full attention. And additionally, I think there was more consensus than we realized in the confusion of the conversation. I also recognize that with the upcoming election in April, there's a natural transition on the horizon for our board, and part of my initial reluctance stemmed from a consideration of this changeover. However, I now see a valuable opportunity for us to lay a strong foundation, which can be seamlessly carried forward by the incoming board members. I think this approach would ensure continuity and respect the work that we've done and that the new leadership will do. So because of these aforementioned reasons, I'd like to request either a special meeting for the topics of a wetlands protection program via a proposal I'd like to bring before the board, or that the aforementioned item be added to the next agenda. It's similar in scope to the suggested staff recommendation that was position 3, I think, from the previous meeting. Thoughts?
I totally agree.
Can I jump in? From a process perspective, I'm just curious, is there new information that has been learned since that discussion?
I don't know that there has been new information learned. I think the last discussion was very confused, and when I rewatched the video, truly in my haste to leave, and in the future I should just excuse myself, I pretty much redirected the conversation.
Okay. And from the staff perspective, has anything changed with respect to your recommendation in the memo from that meeting?
Not at this point, no.
So so just from a procedural perspective, I would say that a majority of the board tonight can absolutely support this request, and this can be either held as a special meeting or added as an agenda item to the next meeting. I would caveat that we have received trainings from DOLA that reinforce the idea that without one of those 2 questions that I asked having a different answer, we've been recommended that that's not what we should do. And once we make a decision or give a direction, unless something material changes, it would be very atypical of us to do what is being requested. That said, majority of the board can absolutely do that.
Yes, and I do recognize this is atypical. That's why I provided the context surrounding the request.
I understand. And we've had a lot of experiences where we had difficult discussions where, we've thought further about issues afterwards. I've certainly, voted in the moment on something and then thought more about it and wished I'd voted differently. But we've been advised that that's not a good enough reason to rehash an issue. But again, if a majority of the board wants to do that, we can do that.
So where do we stand?
I would like to revisit it, absolutely. If we can put it on the next agenda, I would support that.
I agree.
I would agree with revisiting it.
I think for me, I definitely recognize the impetus and I certainly respect, Liv, your statement and your feeling publicly. I think that's really important to acknowledge. It was a very surprising discussion to me that we had on that topic. I'm wrestling a little bit with procedurally, like how to move forward. And I think there has been lack of direction from the board to staff. And we've had like recommendations from staff that are different than maybe how the board feels, or some majority in the board feels, or some members of the board feel. So I'm having a little bit of trouble kind of with how we move forward in this discussion and as an agenda item, because we did have it on an agenda a while recently, and we knew it was coming, and we didn't like know what we wanted to do then. So I'm still making the case that the time that we spend on this is time that we are not spending on other things. And it's okay if we want to say that as a community that we want to do that, but I'm just not, it's still.
And I will say, I'm not asking that that exact same agenda item be put back on the agenda. I actually have a drafted proposal that is much more specific and outlines several courses of action. And I would like that proposal to be put on the agenda.
Oh, will you say more about that?
Well,
or
we
is that
can't, we
okay?
can't. So what I would say.
So what are we proposing to do?
Time out.
Okay.
So that's slightly different, and that's really helpful context. What I would say, since my initial reaction to that is that needs to go in front of staff, and then staff needs to decide if it's suitable for being on an agenda item or if it needs to go to a committee or a work session. I would note that, like, Liv, you're not a scientist. And so like if I put forth a substantive proposal of a course of action on a tricky topic, like it would need to get vetted by consultants and staff to be feasible. I don't think that like the board is overstepping when it creates its own proposals like that. So I think that that's what was being asked before. That's a good step forward, but I would recommend from a process perspective that proposal be shared with staff, the staff review, and staff determine whether or not that should go directly to a board meeting or if it needs to go in front of consultants for further fleshing out. Because if it's not feasible from a staff perspective, what's the point of the board discussing it?
Gloria, I shared the proposal with you. What are next steps that are possible procedurally?
Procedurally, well, it kind of depends because I didn't evaluate it that way. So I would just have to evaluate it, and then if the board wants me to put it on the next agenda, I can.
May I suggest, since the majority of the board is in support of revisiting the item, that we give staff discretion to decide if the proposal is sufficiently feasible or if it needs further expert opinion or work session time, and that we defer to Gloria in deciding whether it's a agenda item at the next meeting or a work session, or being sent off to CPS or whoever for review. Or not CPS, but I forget the name of our consultant. Ironwood, sorry.
But and the proposal that you are putting forward, that is based off of previous action items that were given to us by CPS and by the staff?
It is based off of what was option 3 in the last packet, which was the adoption of the wetlands map, a reduced scope moratorium, And
This isn't supposed to be a substantive discussion about that topic. I'm just saying, if it's straightforward and it's from something else, then it's really easy for Gloria to put it on the next meeting. If it's
Okay.
something that isn't actionable, because I'm avoiding any substance here. I'm just saying, like, if it's something that's super actionable because it was already proposed, and it's just a repackaging of that, then Gloria can
Yes.
say this is fit for consumption. If it's something new or has iterations that require an expert review from Gloria's perspective, then it has to get more review before the board can make a decision about it, right?
Understood.
I think we've seen instances where through trustee report or meeting discussion, we've had a discussion over like, would the board like to see this on the agenda again? We've certainly done that. I think what feels a little bit different with this topic. So I'm not opposed to that approach procedurally, but what feels a little bit different in this is like, we kind of moved forward definitively. And so that was sort of, that feels a little confusing, I think, for staff in the community. But I think it's not totally out of the ordinary for the board to say collectively, like, we'd like to see this topic on the agenda. I think what's hard for me is that it was on the agenda. It was something, we had a substantive discussion about it, so I'm just stuck on how we.
It wasn't, it's something that's consuming a lot of time, and I think it's a valuable use of time. I just think the timing continues to be so problematic. And we've heard so explicitly from staff that we are prioritizing some pretty specific items that also receive a lot of community support and are timely in and of themselves. Specifically, Anvil comes to mind just because it was on our agenda earlier tonight. And so while I think there is some headway to be made with when it comes to this subject, I've just really I want to make the case for protecting staff. I want to make the case for staff bringing this to the board, saying they know how the board feels. They know that this is something that's important. And I think if they thought it was something they could tackle in this current month, at this current time, or within the next month or two, then we would be prioritizing it and we would be tackling it. And to put more onto the staff in terms of vetting or reading or getting it onto an agenda item or scheduling another work session, it just is really going against what the staff has so explicitly shared with us, which is that to do this means to deprioritize other things. And the other things that are on the list are things like I'm just looking at the staff report, code rewrite, Anvil annexation.
Sally, the signal I
Other
cut off
things.
Liv, like, I want to make sure that we don't dive into substantive details too much and that we stick to
My point is that there are a lot of priorities, and if we're going to decide to move, with a recommendation of another meeting or a work session, I just want to be really sensitive to what that demand puts on staff. In terms of timing, not like a never ever, just the timing of it.
So I just asked the question, I mean, based on what Dana and Sally said, is anybody persuaded, or is the majority of the board wanting to move forward? And if so, the only thing I would filter that with is, Gloria saying that whatever's being proposed is feasible.
Yeah, I would still like to move forward, and I would trust Gloria to make that decision after looking at the proposal.
I agree.
I'd also agree.
Great.
Okay.
Clayton, I saw that you turned your video on. Is there anything you wanted to jump in with or clarify?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the parliamentarian attorney necessarily, but I want to make sure that just the board understands what you guys are doing procedurally. At the previous meeting, you gave direction, I believe it was a 5-2 or a 4-3 vote, to let the moratorium and the current, or the wetland moratorium and process that was in place lapse. and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not worried about the substance, I'm more focusing on the procedure. And so even though that wasn't necessarily a written ordinance or resolution, it was a direction and decision made by the board. And it was, now we're looking to revisit it. Procedurally, for that to happen right, one of the members of the majority voting has to move to reopen that topic. So the reason being is that you don't want somebody who's in a minority vote constantly reopening an issue because they lost a vote. And so the rules are such that the majority voter has to reopen that topic. The other requirement is that nothing substantive has been done, in support of that decision, which is the easy analysis here because the decision was, we're not renewing the current wetland regime and moratorium. And so there's been no proactive action, at least not that I'm aware of, taken by the staff. So that it really just comes down now to process where if you are going to reconsider the decision that has been made, a majority voter has to be the one to request it. That's if you're going to be technical about it.
Clayton, I am a majority voter for that issue. So
Okay.
do I need to formally request it by making a motion or?
That's what I'm getting at is like, you guys can talk about all you want, but one of the majority people just needs to make the motion to reopen the issue. If that's really what you're doing, it sounds to me like it's some sort of, couldn't be argued that it's not the same issue because have some different proposal, but.
Well, I mean, I'll defer to you on this. Either way, I am interested in reopening the issue, whether it's narrowed down to just my proposal, which is a variant of an option that staff provided in terms of potential directions, or I can just motion to reopen it. Is there one that would be better from a procedural standpoint?
Yeah, I think it's the same topic either way. I would, and I apologize. I don't recognize who, I couldn't remember who voted exactly which way. I just wanted to make sure that happened the right way so that you weren't challenged later for rediscussing a topic. So that's fine. I would just motion, a majority voter just can motion to reopen the topic.
Are we able to motion things like this in trustee reports?
Well, technically, at the end of the trustee report, or I think it's on our agenda items, is that discussion of future topics, and that's really what we're talking about.
I'm not following you. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, in our historically, at least, the trustee reports is where we have generated some future topics for agenda requests. We don't necessarily have an agenda item on our on tonight's meeting that says trustee requests for future agenda items. And historically, at least from, since I've been on board, this is where you guys do discuss the possibility of work sessions and future agenda items is during your trustee report. So I think it's an appropriate place for it.
Copy that. I don't know that we've ever had an issue that needed a motion that wasn't either new business or continued business or consent agenda. So I was just curious.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like you guys have recognized, it is a little bit of a nuanced area for you guys because your board is makes decisions with a lot of unanimity. But this is actually something very typical for split boards. But you guys are very solid and I don't want you to think that making a split vote makes you not a solid board. It just so happens that you guys are in, you guys have a lot of unanimous votes. But that's not necessarily typical. It's just typical for Silverton.
To clarify,
That's amazing. Did you hear that?
For Silverton.
so Clayton, to clarify, I can make that motion here. I don't need to do it in any other part of the meeting.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to do it. If you want to
Okay.
make,
Right. Motion to reopen the topic regarding wetlands protection policy and moratorium.
I think that motion needs clarification
How,
with respect to Gloria's kind of consideration of whether or not it's a feasible item or if it needs to go to a work session or committee or something.
well, the previous item was about giving staff direction. So if I were to revise the statement, it would be a motion to reopen the discussion on staff direction regarding a wetlands protection policy program and a moratorium on wetlands.
Before that seconded, can I ask then, is the request for staff to consider your request and provide a new memo with their opinion about it? If you're asking for a discussion around staff direction for this agenda item?
I think if something has changed and staff would like to give new direction or new feedback, sure.
Because I'm just confused. I just want to make sure that it's clear what we're asking staff to do. You have a proposal, you've sent it to Gloria. Gloria is going to review it. Is the expectation that Gloria provides her opinion to the board for discussion, or is the expectation that we just all show up, or you just all show up at the next meeting and review the proposal alongside with staff and have a discussion about what direction things could go without getting additional input from staff beforehand?
Well, I think I would need to defer to what Clayton thinks on that because I do have a proposal that I could bring, but it's so similar in what was previously on the agenda that it is essentially just reopening that same agenda item.
So we may not need a new memo from staff if it is that.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and Clayton, maybe you can provide guidance here. I feel like we're in a little bit of uncharted territory because historically, when we have agenda items, the summary, the proposal comes from staff, right? It's uncharacteristic, at least for this board, for the proposal to come from a board member. But maybe you can give some context to us on what that might look like. You know, in pre-conversations with staff reaches out to trustees and has discussions, and that informs their thinking and informs their memo. But just curious, procedurally, I'm just still kind of stuck on the procedural component here of how we move forward with maybe what Liv has, as well as how we work with staff, considering how we've done it in the past.
right, I think, you can do it either way. I think it's healthier to have a discussion on it and give staff something to review that you guys already have a consensus on, just so we're not spinning our wheels. Because you guys might look at whatever this proposal is and be like, there's no way we have a majority vote on this particular proposal. So, I think discussion is appropriate to gain a majority consensus before staffing time and resources against it, if that makes sense. So I think, the original motion just for the discussion is appropriate. That said, that I think is the best course of action. That said, you are all our legislators. You can request and go through the proper process and bring, any ordinance or law or policy to the board in draft form that you made, and get it, and have a discussion and possible vote on it. The trick to that part, and the reason I don't think that's the healthier way to do it, is because on the back end of that, when staff reviews it to actually put it into play, and or it goes through a legal review, there could be major parts of it that have to be amended or redacted, et cetera. And then you're kind of right back where you started. Okay. And so I think that discussion is important so that you guys have consensus as to what we're actually looking at. Because it might morph or change. I don't think we should just assume that, there's just one policy out there that, that we should review and then bring back to the board, because like you stated, it's not coming from staff. Although I do think in this situation, it's going to be very similar based on the assertions, made here that they're basically from that third option But, you know, my direct advice would be just have a discussion on it first.
Okay. So then my original motion to reopen the discussion on a moratorium and wetlands protection policy to give staff guidance on the topic is correct. Okay. All right. One more time. I'd like,
It's already open. I think you can just let that
Okay.
stand and ask for a second if I'm.
okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Kränker?
I really wish we would have had this discussion when it was on the agenda before. I do think this merits more discussion among the board leading into the turnover, so I'll vote yes.
Trustee Harper?
Absolutely, yes.
Trustee Beerbaum?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Pro Tem Barney?
No.
Mayor Furman?
I'm going to vote no because I think that this is an inappropriate overstep of the trustee role, and I think it directly undermines a very clear staff direction in a memo. But this will be on the next agenda because the motion passes. Any other trustee reports this evening? Okay, next item on our agenda is continued business, item 9A, resolution 2024-04, a resolution to amend and approve the refuse fund rates for commercial businesses for the town of Silverton.
Okay, so you guys are getting another long-term project in front of you. This resolution is a culmination of a 3-year project for staff to address the inaccuracies in billing in our refuse fund regarding how businesses pay for refuse. The cost for waste disposal has increased over the years and the town has not kept pace with these costs, creating a deficit in our fund. The refuse fund acts as an enterprise fund, which is a different fund from our general fund, so it's supposed to be self-sustaining. So in terms of what that means, while businesses might contract directly with Bruin, that contract does not include the cost of transferring the waste out of the county to the landfill or processing facility. There have been numerous finance meetings and work sessions to address the sustainability of the refuse fund. This project was started before me and Melina has worked really hard to refine it and keep it on track. So thanks, Melina, for being that consistency. We did receive one concerned business owner. They own an RV park and were concerned about being charged for the additional EQRs in the winter. This is not the case, but it's not defined in this particular resolution. If we want to codify that, because typically we don't charge above the base rate for RV parks in the winter. But I can't find a resolution that says that. So I would say if the board passes this one, we would then introduce another resolution talking about that specific change or that specific policy that we have, that we don't charge above the base rate in the winters for those for RV parks.
Well, and any business that's closed, if they're not open during the winter, then we're not gonna charge an EQR rate. It would just be the base commercial rate. Also, there is one correction. It is 2024-04, not 03, like it says in your packet.
All right, I moved around the agenda at the last minute, and so everything's got a little funky.
I'm going to be a bad guy over and over tonight, but I don't think this is a good idea. I think we should disincentivize seasonal businesses. So I would recommend not reducing rates for closed businesses.
Well, it sounds like we could approve this one as it stands
Mhm.
and discuss that policy.
Yep.
I'd be in support of the rest of it.
I think this makes a ton of sense. I know we need to do a little work on communicating it to a variety of businesses just to make sure everybody's on the same page, but this predated me on the finance committee, I think, so.
We've been needing to do something about this for a very long time.
My one question was if we just have an email that maybe we could send out through the chamber or just, making sure that our communication is clear and transparent, and it might save you all some headache in the long run of phone calls.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do that.
Yeah. I know Deanne has a chamber email list or however else might be the most appropriate.
And I can bring the seasonal businesses to the P&O committee discussion, if that works for you all.
Good idea.
Mhm. So it says on the agenda 2024-04. It says on the resolution 2024-03.
It is 04.
04.
It is so for.
Got it. Great.
Got a little confused there at the end.
We're doing a lot.
Counting. Jeez. Are you ready? Should we roll it out? I'll make a motion to approve a resolution 2024-04, a resolution to amend and approve the refuse fund rates for commercial businesses for the town of Silverton.
Second.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Just to clarify, if we vote yes, we're not having reduced rates, like that part's still for seasonal businesses, that is still subject to future discussion.
Correct. That's how it has been operating before. I can't find a resolution or a policy that has that. And that came up as we were drafting this one. I didn't want to include that in this one because I wanted to introduce that separately. I can introduce that to the P&O committee on the 26th.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure I understood how I was voting.
Absolutely.
And then we'll be able to discuss that RV component
Yes.
as well. Okay.
Trustee Edwards?
Yes.
Trustee Kränker?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Beerma?
Yes.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. Thank you very
EQR and
much.
annexation, that's
There goes that
big.
unanimity.
You wouldn't think so, but.
We're wrapping some stuff up with this board.
All right, we'll move on to our last substantive agenda item, which is continued business 9B, Blair Street Revitalization Funding Update.
Okay, just a quick update. And I'll provide some context for the record, but in 2019, the town contracted with SGM Engineering to complete the Blair Street Sidewalk Improvement Plan. This plan designed infrastructure improvements along Blair Street spanning 10th to 14th Street, including side streets. This is a $2.3 million project. Last year, the town applied for the Colorado Department of Transportation federally funded Transportation Alternatives Program grant for the implementation of the Blair Street Sidewalks Improvement Plan for a reduced scope. And we were awarded less money than we requested, further reducing the scope. And so our project budget is a little under $700,000. If we move forward with signing the IGA, the next board will need to discuss the prioritization for this project for the 2025 budget. And right now, what we're asking for is direction to move forward with signing the IGA.
And pursue funding. Keep pursuing funding.
Is there a hole you haven't looked down yet?
Yes, actually. Main Streets is next.
Great.
Main Streets, Blair Streets. Yeah. Continue.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? Okay.
Stop. And their money.
Show me.
I mean, is there any issue in terms of, again, the prioritization? Or is this just flowing in with like the regular sort of pursuit of funding that, like, is this fitting well with other tasks on the list?
Well, the great thing about pursuing the main streets is it takes it off Lucy's plate.
Mhm.
And it puts it with San Juan Development to do the next grant application, but they can regurgitate a lot of the stuff that we've already submitted.
Right, multiple times.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and we already have this funding here, and so instead of saying no to it, we just get to keep it hanging on and seeing how we can leverage
I
it.
really don't want to give it back.
Yeah. Keep on keeping on her.
Okie dokie. Anything else before wrapping up? All right, we'll now go to public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make public comment?
No, our one remaining member says no.
Okay. If anyone on Zoom would like to make a public comment, please click the raise hand button. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Thank you all very much for a productive meeting tonight. The time's 8:37 p.m. and I adjourn the meeting. Have a great night and see you all soon.
Thank you.
Everyone.
You.
Annexation.
We